Pass this part.
What's up, my sci-fi nerds? With everyone obsessing over Project Hail Mary right now, including me, Rocky and Grace are my new favorite ship, for real. It feels like sci-fi comedies are back on the rise, and we all know one of the best sci-fi comedies ever was actually a ripoff of a beloved franchise. Yep, guys, I'm talking about Star Wars and the brilliant parody of it called Spaceballs. I was a 2000s kid and it still held up for me. I mean, it has made its mark on pop culture and you just can't deny it. And now with some insanely perfect timing, we're here to give you all the juicy deets about Spaceballs 2. Amazon MGM Studios announced the project all the way back in 2025. It's back, baby! After years of teasing and edging us with Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money, yes guys, that was genuinely the proposed title because the whole joke was that they'd made a big sequel only to make the big bucks. But now they've actually done it, and it's all we've been waiting for. A satirical joke about Hollywood's obsession with sequels is becoming a reality. Who could have thought, man? And we will take you on a journey from start to finish, give you all the latest updates and the production info so that you don't have to watch any other video or read another article on Spaceballs 2. So let's get started.
Hopsy Margy! Hopsy Daisy!
Original Legacy. As always, let's first hop on that time machine and go all the way back to 1987 when Spaceballs was released by MGM under the direction of Mel Brooks. It was pretty obviously a Star Wars parody, all because of Brooks' son Max's love for Star Wars. I mean, the plot was about a mercenary named Lone Star and his furry alien sidekick Barf, trying to save Princess Vespa from Dark Helmet and President Scroob. I don't think I really need to explain the parallels with Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Chewbacca, Princess Leia, and Darth Vader. Hell, they even parodied Yoda in the most hilarious way possible. And it was Mel Brooks who took on that role of Yogurt. Plus, they didn't even stop at Star Wars. They made fun of a whole bunch of franchises, including Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, and even Transformers. Clearly, no sci-fi movie is safe from the irony of Spaceballs. Interestingly, Spaceballs wasn't even the first film to parody Star Wars, and when it was originally released, it did pretty meh. It grossed $38 million domestically against a $22.7 million budget and received pretty mixed reviews. Some people liked it and some didn't. But what no one expected was its rise to cult status as it gained a huge following all over the world. All because of its insanely quotable lines like ludicrous speed and Yogurt absolutely demolishing the fourth wall with his merchandise obsession. And remember guys, this was like the time for parodies. Parody franchises peaked after this time. You guys remember the Scary Movie franchise? So no surprises here, Spaceballs became huge. And they even joked about a sequel. Of course, almost 40 years passed and there were no updates. I don't think anyone was even expecting a sequel. But, well, here we are, and it's going to be bad, but glorious, guys.
Have a nice day.
Thank you!
Plot speculation. Okay, so what can we expect from the sequel, guys? Of course, the plot is still heavily under wraps and everything, but fortunately we do have somewhat of an idea. It will kick things off right where it left off with Lone Star, Vespa, Barf, and Dot Matrix defeating Dark Helmet, and President Scroob's plan to steal Druidia's heir. We also will be getting new characters, particularly Starburst, who is Lone Star and Vespa's son, which means that family adventures are totally on the table. They could maybe even take some father-son inspo from Han Solo and Kylo Ren, or Anakin and Luke. Now, apart from the storyline itself, we are expecting Spaceballs to parody the hell out of all the sci-fi projects and franchises from the last 40 years. Have you guys seen the announcement teaser? It literally named like 24 movie franchises. It took that typical Star Wars opening and added a text crawl that said, 38 years ago, there was only one Star Wars trilogy. But since then, there have been a prequel trilogy, a sequel trilogy, a sequel to the prequel, a prequel to the sequel, and countless TV spin-offs, including a movie spin-off of the TV spin-off, which is both a prequel and a sequel. And then it named every big movie or franchise that has stormed the big screen since Spaceballs debuted in 1987. I'm talking big names, including Dune, Jurassic Park, Marvel, DC, The Lion King, Harry Potter, Star Trek, Alien, and Predator. Hell, it even referenced Robert Downey Jr.'s double role in Marvel as Iron Man and Doctor Doom. And I think this is going to be its biggest strength. Instead of restricting itself to Star Wars, they're opening up the door to take the mick out of Hollywood itself. It already parodied Hollywood's greed in the first film, and now they can do so much more. Commentary on legacy sequels and reboots, the lack of originality in Hollywood today, and everyone just capitalizing on nostalgia and fan service. Considering that Spaceballs 2 itself is a legacy sequel, they have the opportunity to be super self-aware. Brooks himself joked in the announcement trailer saying, "After 40 years, we asked, what do the fans want? But instead, we're making this movie." I also really hope they name the sequel The Search for More Money. And it seems like we have a super passionate and involved team behind the sequel, so my hopes are kinda high. One of the writers, Josh Gad, teased that the sequel will probably make fun of the Disney area of the science fiction franchise, and they're prepping hard. I know we're sad that Mel is no longer in the director's chair, but he's super involved too. In fact, this is what Gad had to say. "Mel is incredibly involved. I'll share a funny story that I haven't yet shared. When we were pitching him the original concept for what we wanted to do with the film, at the beginning he goes, 'I'm just telling you now, I want you to really go into detail because I don't know a lot about the new Star Wars films.' And I said, okay. It's literally like I'm a combat vet, just going to war in front of one person. I'm sweating. I am getting into every line and every beat and every comedic set piece, every reveal. I'm painting all of it, and I'm speaking to how this speaks to a certain Star Wars moment." Also, funnily enough, the sequel will be released in the same year as Star Wars Starfighter.
I can't breathe in this thing!
Production journey. You'd think that the production journey of this sequel started in 2025 when it was announced, or maybe a few years earlier, but you couldn't be more wrong. This sequel was actually born all the way back in 2013 when Rick Moranis told the audience that he and Mel Brooks had genuinely discussed a sequel to Spaceballs. Moranis had even suggested yet another hilarious title called Spaceballs 3: The Search for Spaceballs 2. But they just couldn't manage the right deal and the studio didn't move forward with it. Whispers about the sequel were still floating around, of course. In 2015, audiences again had their hopes up when Brooks started talking about Spaceballs 2. But as you know, nothing came out of it. Eventually, a lot of time passed and Rick Moranis stepped away from the big screen, so the sequel dreams felt pretty distant and impossible. Then all of a sudden, in 2024, MGM Studios announced Spaceballs 2. Except this time, Mel Brooks wouldn't be in the director's seat. Instead, they got Josh Greenbaum on board, and Gad described him as one of the greatest directors I've ever had the privilege of knowing. So hey, the hopes are high. They have an even better lineup of writers with Gad, Benji Samit, and Dan Hernandez. In fact, the story behind how and why the sequel is finally in motion is pretty endearing. Turns out Josh Gad was watching Spaceballs with his daughter back in 2022, and since Mel Brooks' Yogurt says, "God willing, we'll all meet again in Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money," his daughter assumes that there's a sequel and asked him if they could watch part 2. She just assumed that it was a promise and that it had been kept. How cute, honestly. And even when he tried to tell her that there is no part 2, she kept saying, "Yeah, there is. He says it." What happened next is even better. Gad explains. She says, "Well, why didn't they do it?" And I said, "I don't know." And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I went to bed that night and I swear to God I dreamt up the entire movie that we're about to start shooting in 2 weeks. And I called Mel Brooks because I'm a jackass who just picks up the phone and calls Mel Brooks. And I pitched him. I called him and I recorded him without his permission, and he said after I pitched him, he said, "Josh, I've been waiting 35 years for this phone call." And I actually get emotional thinking about it. And I wish I could tell you anything about this movie. I've been sworn to secrecy, but if you are a fan of Spaceballs, you're gonna love Spaceballs 2. Even though I have my doubts about this sequel, this little anecdote really does it for me. Especially since Brooks was pretty clear that he had no interest in making a sequel previously, and now he's fully on board and giving it his all. Gad couldn't be happier with his presence, honestly. He said, "I honestly can't believe we're here, but more than anything, I'm so grateful that I'm getting to do it while Mel is still with us." And rightly so, because Brooks turned 99 years old in June 2025, and will be reaching that century line in just a few months. Crazy, right? And ever since the announcement in 2024, things have been picking up pretty quickly. By June of 2025, we already knew which of the original cast members would be returning for the sequel, and then shooting began by September in Sydney, Australia. They got Jeff Cutter on board as the cinematographer, and clearly he did a wonderful job since filming ended by December. Literally just 2.5 months. Considering the years of stalls and delays and things not working out, things have been pretty smooth when it comes to the production. Count me impressed, guys. In fact, most of the behind-the-scenes stories we've seen have been pretty positive. There was a black and white table read photo released showing the cast together, and it's basically a recreation and parody of The Force Awakens table read photo. The jokes have already begun, guys, and the cast and crew have been nothing but joyous. Gad called the whole process his most rewarding creative journey, and Zuniga couldn't help but look back to the 1987 shoot and just how far they've come.
Ogert! Hello, boys. Well, you opened your fortune cookie, so here's your fortune.
Cast breakdown. Alright guys, let's get into the cast breakdown now. Of course, a bunch of OG faces will be returning, starting off with Mel Brooks, who will be reprising his role as Yogurt and President Scroob, which is actually an anagram of Brooks. Think about it, guys. We also have Bill Pullman returning as Lone Star, Daphne Zuniga reprising the role of Princess Vespa, and of course, Rick Moranis returning as Dark Helmet, which will legit be his first appearance on the big screen since 1997, when he starred in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. After years of stepping away from the limelight to take care of his children after the passing away of his wife, he has now agreed to return to his iconic Darth Vader parody character. A W father and a W actor, my guy can do it all, it seems. Turns out Brooks told him, "Look, do you want to go to your grave without ever coming back to show business again in any way? This is the way. This is the only way. Spaceballs, Dark Helmet, that's your re-entrance." And it seems like he's even better in the first edition. Brooks describes him as, "He's so good, he's a strange, wonderful, lovely guy and a very talented comic." And apart from our OG actors, we also have a few new names. One's of course Josh Gad. The co-writer and his role are under wraps, so we have no idea. And I think it's going to be a pretty fun surprise. There's also Bill Pullman's son, Lewis Pullman, who we know will be playing Starburst, the son of Lone Star and Princess Vespa. Can't wait to see how the real-life father-son energy translates to the screen. Keke Palmer is also joining the cast with the role of Destiny. Then it was announced that Anthony Carrigan from Superman has been added to the roster, and George Weiner, who played Colonel Sanders, will be back in his original role. Sounds like a pretty well-chosen cast if you ask me. Of course, here I must mention that there is one specific absence that will be felt deeply. John Candy had absolutely aced the role of Barf. He was funny and energetic, and his presence really contributed to making the film what it was. We don't yet know how the film will acknowledge his passing, if they'll give him some sort of tribute or maybe drop a few references, but I'm hoping they do something to remember him. Controversies. Okay, now let's get real for a minute, guys. Despite all the excitement, we people have doubts. Quite a few doubts. Firstly, as critics have already pointed out, the sequel does kind of ruin the whole Spaceballs 2, the search for more money joke. The whole point of that line was to make fun of Star Wars and all those franchises that make never-ending sequels all for money. They perfectly highlighted the greed rampant in Hollywood. I mean, remember Spaceballs the flamethrower? The merchandise that Yogurt was selling also drove home that same point, that Hollywood, especially Star Wars, would have the most random merchandise just for an easy cash grab. After all this satire, it feels kinda hypocritical and self-defeating when they actually do come up with a sequel. But maybe, just maybe, they could make it good enough to justify its existence. And maybe they'll be so self-aware of their own legacy sequel that it'll actually turn out to be funny. But that's not the only concern. I've seen fans online be concerned about the fact that Brooks is no longer directing, but I don't think that'll hurt much, especially since from everything we're hearing he's super involved as an actor, producer, and even helping in writing. Instead, what is more concerning is that the film landscape has changed since 1987. First of all, parody films have fallen off, like they had one of the worst fall-offs ever. Most people hate the later scary movies. It just became such a saturated genre, and there was simply no new material. Even Scream has pretty much become meh, and I haven't even bothered to watch the latest edition. People just lost interest in spoof films, I guess. Plus, back when Spaceballs was released, spoofs and parodies were just beginning. Spaceballs wasn't the first Star Wars parody, but the concept was novel. Today you have like a billion parodies and satires, including LEGO Star Wars, crossovers with Phineas and Ferb, and even ones made by fans and released on YouTube. Parody films are no longer just exclusive to the big screen, they're literally everywhere, and Spaceballs has not been in the business for a while. Now, I could give Spaceballs 2 the benefit of the doubt and hope that nostalgia carries it through. Maybe just this once, a parody revival will occur and it'll all work out. But then there's another issue. Films have actually become super self-aware in recent times. Marvel makes fun of itself all the time and even breaks the fourth wall. So what will the parodies make fun of, you know? Like, for example, even Star Wars themselves have made fun of how stormtroopers, who are meant to be super sharpshooters, actually have really bad aim since they could never kill any of the heroes in the OG trilogy. Films have become pretty meta nowadays, which leaves less material for spoofs. Also, fans are hella ruthless these days. One misstep and Spaceballs 2 will be cancelled. We live in a world of toxic cancel culture and fanaticism after all. But it's not all gloomy, guys. The only thing Spaceballs 2 has to keep in mind, and from the announcement teaser it seems like it's already doing that, is that they've got to expand their source material. They can no longer just stick to Star Wars, they've got to spoof the entirety of Hollywood and the legacy sequel tropes. That way they have more material to work with, they can do some really strong social commentary, and they can have some very funny fifth wall breaking moments. Yeah, that's a joke, guys. Release date. And guys, last but not least, with filming wrapped up in December and production moving full steam ahead, we're looking at a 2027 release. Specifically, MGM Studios has scheduled the release for April 23rd, 2027, which means that it's just 1 year of wait away. I'm definitely planning on going to the theaters and watching it. What about you guys? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, smash the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to our channel for more such movie and TV updates. And we'll see you soon. Goodbye!